Alright, parts are all cleaned up. I went ahead and put the front parts back on. I found 2 screws, changed them out, made them both the same. Found a different screw for this because the one that was in it was really hard to get out because it was just about stripped. So I've dry fitted the time side. Pretty happy with how it came out. So I'm working on this second wheel. And I think that this little lever is the problem. It's contacting it. I think is giving it some resistance. Upside down. Alright, so just the second wheel in there and holding this at the top because there's no screw in it. If I hold this out of the way, if I hold that and that out of the way, just to see how well it spins. Checking my in-shake. There isn't much. But it spins pretty good. And then drop the gong lever on. Still spins pretty good. Gong's not the problem. Drop the other one. I can hear a different sound because this is rubbing on it. So it's not quite straight. I'm going to try to straighten it up and see if I can get it where it's not rubbing on the wheel. Should have a little bit better in shake. Because basically there isn't much in it at all. Maybe that needs to be bent out a little. Maybe it got mashed in some. Anyway, let me straighten up this wire. Alright, I did adjust this lift lever a little bit with the next wheel in. It actually rides on that one, so I may have put it in the wrong spot, but we'll see when we get it all together. I've got the cam pointed straight up and down, the locking lever ready to fall in the cam, and then the pin on this fourth wheel is going to come up to the front of that lever. And then I'm going to try to put the plate on and see where we are. So, have to get the bottom in, slide the top. Everything goes everywhere. That's the bottom one. Had the best luck going from the bottom to the top. Alright, there's the second. The third one's got to move over some. Where's my wire mover? There we go. It is not easy to catch these little holes in this wooden plate. Definite learning curve. Once you figured out how to do it on brass plates, it is not the same when you come to the wooden ones. Because you can't just put a couple screws, a couple nuts on the posts and hold it. So every time you go to move one, something else moves. Let's get that lever in. There we go. And then maybe it will let this third wheel go in. Alright, third one is in. It's turned. I gotta get it up and down again. Like most of them, the fan seems to be taller than the other arbors. Alright, I'll get these last two arbors in and meet you back. Alright, I've got everything has got some good in-shake. Fan. Fourth wheel. Third wheel. Second wheel. Not great, but I can hear a little bit as it moves. So I'm going to put some pressure on the string. Before, when I had this in the truck and I was playing with it just to see if it would do anything at all, and then the face was still on it. I was trying not to bend the tin, and it was really stiff. It hadn't been oiled, super dirty, and no matter how hard I pulled this string, I could not make anything move. That's why it has super heavy weights on it, I guess. And so I'm going to turn the dial on the front. We're going to see if it goes into warning. It's lifting, went into warning, turning, locking, and I'm pulling it with my finger. So that's good. Like, hopefully with the weight on it, it's gonna work this time. I'm pulling pretty hard on it, but it seems to be. I'll have to make sure when it goes into warning that it's catching. I'm not sure that it did because I moved the wire. So it's lifting. I don't know. I can't tell. I'm going to have to look at it off camera just so I can see what's going on, because I've got it angled where you can see and I can't see. So, and my little door fell back off because I didn't screw it on. So this sits at a funny angle, makes it hard to turn the hands. So let me do a couple things and we'll see where we are. Alright, I'm going to try this again. I put the bell on. I'm holding the rope real tight. I think that I did not adjust anything. I think that the warning pin was caught up under it and wasn't letting it work like it was supposed to. So let's see what happens. Lifting. Hope y'all can see that. Oh, I went too fast. Alright, let's try that again. I don't have the count wheel on, so it's just going to do it one time and shut off. I got to do it slow enough that it has time to go into warning and catch on the lift piece. Alright, so let me take a look. Okay, so the warning pin is no longer hitting the front of the big metal lever. It's on the little wire, lift wire, that lifts the... It's on this little wire that I adjusted that lifts the lever, metal lever. So now I can go on. It's lifting it higher. It's still up against the wire good. And then when the pin falls off, everything falls down. It's letting it turn. Alright, cool beans. And it's pulling pretty decently with me pulling on it. It's not, I couldn't move it before. Alright, I need to put the time side in. I need to put these little guys on and tie the knot back inside. I just put a pin up in here to hold it while I was working on it, so I can pull that right back out of there and get the time side in. This is originally how they were designed, to have a pin holding that plate. So we may go back to the original design, because that screw, I had to put one in the screw hole that they made next to it too, because it was still so wobbly. It was not going to lock down tight. There's so many, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 holes in here already, and 2 on here. So we'll see what I can do to get this side secured. Not much to put in here. Great wheel, second wheel's already in, third wheel and escapement wheel, and then the verge. So I'm going to slip that stuff in and come back to you. Alrighty, finally got these all in. Put a screw, put a pin, tapered pin, unscrewed that, slipped the verge under, pulling the rope. Let's see what happens. It's not level, but can't get a hold of the rope. When it's sitting flat, I think I might be okay. Because with it leaning back, it's hitting the box. I'll have to make a little bits of adjustments on the verge, making sure that I've got it back where it was. Because it did work, and then I tapped that in some more and that in some more, and now it's not. So it's close, but it's not quite there. And I've got to oil everything and put it on the test stand. So I'll meet you back after I do that stuff. I got lucky. I just tightened the screw like this on the front, on the verge holder. Can't think of what it's called. I'm tired. And put it on here, and it's running. It's in beat. So I put the count wheel on. I put the hands on. And I'm gonna try to get over here. I got too much stuff in this room. I just came back from a hunt test, so I got all my hunting equipment sitting everywhere in my way. Can't walk anywhere. Okay, here we go. Nothing on the half hour. It's a 1 hour, on the hour strike only. There it went into warning. I saw the little fan turn. ship's clock didn't want him to be all alone, so he's dinging too. More dinging clocks. Alright, well, this is going to stay on the stand overnight. Let it do its thing. It definitely is... I gotta fix my rope. Definitely is moving like it's supposed to. I still haven't even put the oil on it yet, and it's like it's doing good. So that is good. I got things a little tighter, a little straighter, and a little cleaner, and it takes off and runs. And that's why they have these humongous weights. They designed it to run against everything, that abuse and neglect that they knew people did, running them without oil or having them dirty, or the wood warping over time, and they compensated by just putting a super heavy weight on it when they sold it. So I'm happy with it. I think it is really cool. I'm going to let it run for a little while, and I'm going to find a place for it and get the shield back on it. I have to decide about whether I'm going to make a door. It really needs a door, but whatever they've done right here with this pin is going to make it really difficult to get a door on there. I don't know. Have to think about it. I've spent all day with it on the test stand, with the hands on, weights on. It ran overnight, no problem, without any pendulum on it. It's in beat. And then I put the pendulum on, had to get it a little more fine-tuned in beat, and then I've been fighting with it ever since to keep it running. It won't run good with the pendulum on. I have taken this pendulum rod and straightened it. There was a little bit of wobble in this, so I made sure that it was good and straight. I tightened up the suspension spring because it was sliding around in its little brass mount right here. I tapped this with a hammer, couldn't really get it straight. One of my viewers before had suggested, why didn't I just roll it between two pieces of wood and straighten it out, which worked pretty good, but not great for one this long. But it let me get it close enough in round I could finish tapping it out with the hammer. So I'm going to get all this pendulum put back together and get it back on there and see if it'll keep running. I've got a ruler sitting down there. I've got the center of the pendulum sitting at 4 o'clock, and it's swinging about 2.5 inches either direction. So it's really centered. Everything's doing good. It's just fine-tuning, figuring out what it is. Part of it is this verge thingy will go up and down. It's not super tight either. So, multiple little tiny things that are stopping it. And I also switched the weights and put the super heavy one on the time side. And that still didn't... I wanted a bigger arc. I wasn't getting a big enough arc, so I switched them. I think it was just that I was losing a lot of play with the vibration. So we'll see what happens now that I've got pieces straighter. Get it all back together. Alright, that's looking a whole lot better. It hasn't totally settled out yet, but I'm getting about a 3-inch swing either way. Maybe even 3 1/4, and I was getting about 2.5. So the floppiness in the suspension spring, I was losing a lot of my momentum. And then the wobble in the pendulum at the base from the rod being crooked. So now I'm going to let it run for a while again and see how it's doing. I changed out what was in this. Let me show you. They had this square pin, like for a minute hand, in the top of this, but it doesn't sit flat. It's a pin, so it was sitting like this for it matched the distance of the little groove that was cut in there, but it didn't sit down in there all the way, and it made my top brass mounting piece sit cockeyed to the left, so it wasn't straight. I just had multiple issues all the way around trying to get the pendulum doing what it needs to do. Now it's definitely switching side to side in the little arm there, much better than it was. And getting good swing. Alright, cool. Keep you posted. So with the pendulum on, I've had a lot more problem keeping it running. You can see it's in beat, and it still would stop. I've had to make sure these were tight because I took them both off. And this one over here gave me a lot of trouble. It was loose. When I would make an adjustment on the verge, it would slip down. This hole was worn out, so I had to fill it in and redo it. Get it good and tight. Got them both snug down. Then I had no in shake in my arbor for my verge, so I had to bend it out just a little bit to get some in shake. With just the wire on, without a pendulum, I'm getting 2.5 inches of swing. When I put the pendulum on, it'll run for 20 minutes and stop. So I might have to figure out something different because this is too funky what they designed. Won't let it keep running. It's thick. When it's hanging, all the weight is on one side. It's not, the stick's not in the middle of this thing. It's all the weight's on the front of it. I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but it weighs 1.3 ounces, so it's not super heavy, but the ones I've seen online are just this little thin layer with something behind them. Not a bunch of lead filling it in or anything because it'd be too heavy. So, and I've also debated on just getting rid of this whole system that they came up with the suspension spring and stuff, because it's kind of funky for this style of clock. I've got a pin in this. It's sitting in this little groove, and there's this notch cut out for the suspension spring to go through, but I think the U wire used to just go right there, and maybe the holes got worn or something. I don't know. Somebody decided to cut it out and put this setup in there. So I may try to put some kind of little piece of wood there and put a U wire back on this thing and just have the regular U and V wire, and then put a little hook on the end of my rod here where it goes into the, it's got some threads on it, screw it into this little brass piece. So if I just put a hook on it, I can hang it up here. But I've got to look in my book and see how long this pendulum is supposed to be. There's I don't know, I've read it, but it's been a long time. But there's something in my book about counting how many teeth are on certain wheels. It tells you the length of the pendulum that you need. So I got to decide what I'm going to do. If I'm going to try to rig up some new pendulum or alter that pendulum and see if it'll work, I may just redo this whole leader wire system, because it's a strange design and it's given me a lot of trouble. But anyway, it's running with just the wire on it. And like I said before, when I measured it, this whole thing is 41 inches from up here to the end of that wire. And it's gaining time with no pendulum on it. It is about 1/4 after. It's about 25 minutes fast. It's gaining like 7 minutes an hour or something like that. So it can handle some weight. I just got to decide what I want to do with this. So let's talk a little bit about what I had to do to get this clock in beat and running with the pendulum down where it needs to be so that it keeps the right time. And I'm going to do this, try to do it by hand, because I've got my tripod holding up my stand because the weights are so heavy that there's no way the little clamp would hold it. So I had taken, like I said, I had taken these off and putting them back on and setting up where the verge and the escapement wheel, getting it in beat that way, getting the lift and lock right and all that stuff. I'm going to show you on this clock because it's so hard to see inside the wood on that one. So your 2 pallets on your verge. That's the locking pallet, the straight one on a recoil escapement. And that's the lift one. When it pushes off of these, it gives lift to the pendulum. Probably didn't show you that. I probably didn't have my hand in the right spot. I'm not very left-handed. Okay. So when you're adjusting, this is this one has a single arm that this rests on, so it's a whole lot easier. You adjust this up and down and get as much bite as you need inside your escape wheel teeth. But in that case, there was one on each side, so if I adjusted one, I had to make sure I did not have it torqued a little bit, having one higher than the other. What I have found with experience is you kind of lock this one in place and then push it where you need it to where it locks completely and the wheel won't turn, and then back it off a little bit. And then when it's in motion, you get about 1/3 of a tooth hitting on each one of those pallets. So that was one issue I had to deal with. And then the other issue, and setting this up to be able to show you this, I had to make this piece. This is a replacement piece. I got this clock a long time ago and never could get it working. I didn't know what I was doing. And this was the burge that came with it. And it's a deadbeat burge that someone had modified to act like a recoil by curling up the bottom of it. And when I got the clock, it was actually on this way and was running. I turned this around. It was bent completely the other way and was running backwards. And that took me a while to figure out. So turned it back around, messed with it, never could get this clock in beat. Messed with it so much I ended up having to solder this little wire. Still not happy with it. Nobody had replacement verges. They were all on back order from the different places. So this clock has sat here for a year. But now I've got the replacement one on there. And when I give it a little pressure, I don't have springs on it. I got to put the springs back on it. Give it a little pressure. So it's not in beat. The locking lever is sinking a lot deeper into the escapement wheel teeth than the lift lever is. So in that case, to adjust these, whichever one's biting too much is which direction you bend your rod. Because when it swings away, it's going to pull it out more. So go towards whichever one is too deep. You're thinking that you want it to lift up more, so you want to pull it away, but you don't. You push it toward it so that when it rocks away, it's pulling it further away. What else? What else? I want to show you, in setting this up to show you, I finally figured out why I couldn't ever get this clock to stay running. Hang on, because this guy's fixing to go off, and I want to show you that. I set this at about 2 a.m. probably. It's 11 a.m. It's within 3 seconds of being right. So I'm real happy with that, because I started with just the rod on there so that it would stay running, and then I put the pendulum on and I had it at about 25 inches, and then I just slowly kept lowering it down, and when I got it down to the bottom, once again it didn't want to run, and I have figured out what that is, so I'm going to show you that in a minute too. But on this one, watch this escapement wheel, which I never noticed before. Well, let me take the pendulum off. Hang on. Because it's not really noticeable with the pendulum on. It's got to be going pretty quick. I noticed the escape wheel was wobbling all over those verge pallets. It's bent. isn't bent obviously to the eye, and it's not noticeable when there's a pendulum on it and it's going slow. But if you look at your wheels from the side when they're moving rapidly, you notice things like that. So you got to make sure these are level with each other and that the striking surfaces are both parallel. And then your foot can't be bent. This one would not stay running because if you look, the right hand side of the foot is bent lower than the left, so when this rod hits it, it's not hitting it evenly. And that's enough to stop a clock. After it's been running for a little bit, it might start and then it's going to stop again. And then with this clock here, I told you that it had that square pin in the top. This is my latest addition. 2 pieces of toothpick for wedges to hold this thing tighter. I put the square pin back in the top because I had actually put a steel pin in there so that it would be straight. And when I tapped it in, it sat like this. The hole in this pendulum is crooked, I guess to compensate for the square pin that they used. But I was reading in my little modern clock book over there that the most common cause of what I was having was vibration. I was having the death shake down there on the pendulum. It was going fishtail and blah, 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 every so often, and that was enough to stop the clock. I was losing energy, and the vibration was making the teeth lock up from time to time. So what I did was I put these 2 little toothpicks in here to wedge and make this tighter, and the vibration stopped, and I got about another 1/2 inch swing out of the pendulum distance that it was traveling. It was going to the 2.5 and the 6.5, and now I got another 1/2 inch each way. It's going to the 1 and the 7. So the last thing that I've got to fix, other than making some real wedges for this little piece right here, is if you look straight down, let's see if I can get it the right angle. You might be able to see it there. The pendulum swings oblique, like so. It's not swinging, like I've got the pendulum flat. If you look down the bars, I've got the pendulum flat. So it's not angled, but it is still swinging at an angle because you can look right here at where the foot goes. The rod goes through the foot, and you can see it goes from left to right. So as it goes forward, it's swinging to the far side of the clock and forward, and then when it comes back toward you, it's pulling it back. And I feel like that's this angle that they put in this hole. Everything's got to be straight. The foot's got to be straight. It's like there can't be vibration. There's got to be, this has to be tight. Everything's got to be parallel and perpendicular to each other, or you're going to have issues. So what I've got is, I've got a, no, that's not the one I cut. I tried this rod. I tried a different rod. I tried different things on the top to hold it. This is going to be my latest attempt. This is a brass rod similar to the steel one that I had cut. That's longer, will fit in this little groove that they have notched out in there. And I'm going to try to make a straight hole through there. So let's see if that'll take care of that oblique swing that I've got. And then my husband was nice enough to get that thing mounted up there for me so I can actually raise it up and let it run for a week on a test stand-ish kind of thing. The frame that came with it, I can see how long the weights are going to be and all that stuff, so I can figure out how I'm going to hang this thing. I wanted to point out a few things from this book that kind of got me looking at every little place that interacts with any other piece on that clock. If the pallet step's not at right angles to the crutch, wobbling may be caused by the oblique action of the crutch. So I need to make sure that the pallet steps are at a right angle to the crutch. It still could be the crutch and pallet steps pulling the pendulum rod at an oblique angle. And it also says, if the suspension springs bent or kinked, the pendulum will wobble. If the spring's not thick enough, it'll do the same thing. But the main cause of pendulum wobble in American clocks is that the slot in the bridge that holds the spring is not parallel. So that's what I got going on right there with that sideways angle that they made in the suspension spring. It's got pretty good detail about how to set the beat. If the beat's off to one side, bend the verge wire that same way. And then the little loop in the foot of the crutch should be open just enough to be nice and free. If it's open too much, you'll notice the pallet fork will make a little jump when it's carrying it over. When you manually do it by hand, go back and forth and see how deep your teeth are seated in your escapement wheel, it'll do a little jump and it's lost motion. So by fixing the stuff I did, that's how I got that extra ½ inch each direction. Another inch of swing is significant when I didn't change the depth of the teeth. Like some people will make the teeth, the pallets seat deeper in the teeth to get more swing, but that causes more wear on the ends of your teeth and will wear out your escapement wheel faster. Alright, and this was the table that I talked about. I'm just going to leave it on there for a minute in case y'all need to pause the video to look up a length of a pendulum. It's got the beat right there, the center wheel teeth, the third wheel teeth, how many pinions are on the clock, the escape wheel teeth, and how many vibrations or oscillations of the pendulum in 1 minute. So the one that's up there is 60, 30. It doesn't really matter how many teeth are on the center wheel because all of those take a 39.14 pendulum. And that's where I ended up getting with that bob, was down that far to have it within a couple of seconds in, how long, from 2 to 11, 9 hours time, it's within 3 seconds still. So in a week's time it may be off a minute or so, but in a day's time it's going to be pretty accurate. So this is the suspension spring for that clock. The rod screws up in that hole, and that's the hole it hangs from. And you can probably see that it's not real straight across because they used an angled piece and forced it in that hole. You can also see some tool marks right there where they tried to make some adjustments. So what I thought of that might fix both of my problems as far as the wedges that I need and everything is putting a bushing in. So I've got a bushing that's for that piece of wire. I'm going to do the 1.4 because it's a little bit snug and I want to tap it in and make sure it's good and tight. And I also went with the thickest plate, 2.7, so that this is going to stick out on either side of this and fit against the sides of the wood. And that should keep it from being able to wobble and be like it should be. So I can't show you while I'm doing it, but I'm going to put this on here and get a straight hole and get my bushing in there, tap the pivot into the bushing, and then I'll hang it back on the clock and we'll see what it looks like. So here's my bushing. Sticks out a little bit on each side. I had to figure out how to tap it on there because I couldn't use just my machine to do everything. It wasn't putting it through because of the 3 layers, the 2 brass, one on either side, and then the steel one in the middle. When I tried to tap it in, it just was separating them. So I put it down on a staking block and I used like a little riveting tool to tap it through and try to get it balanced on either side. And so this is the dry fit of that. And it is holding it right there. It's wide enough to catch right there. It's not coming through. So when I tap it a little bit, it's going to wedge it in that wood real good. And I'm going to have a pin in there to hold it too. So let me tap the pin in, and then we'll be ready to put the pendulum back together. I put my little toothpicks back because I wasn't happy. I was still getting some vibration. So I'm going to have to make some kind of little wedges to put in there. But it looks like the rod is not going up and down the foot anymore. It's going straight across. And when I look this way, the pendulum is, I can line up the pendulum bob on this bar and use it as a reference point. And it's not swinging oblique anymore. So I straightened the hole up. That's good. I don't have any end shake. I don't have any vibration, loss of power. And I've got seven and a half inches of swing, roughly. So yeah, I'm going to make these two little wedges out of some little pieces of wood. And we're going to get it hanging up there. I didn't make any wood shims. I decided to file this out a little bit deeper so that the bushing edge could fit down in there better. And it's got good swing now. It's not wobbly. So let's try this. It is on that stand. Seems to be in beat. Not seeing any vibrations. So that's good. Alright, it's going to stay up here for a few days. Then we'll find the final place for it to hang and put the face back. I put the face back on the clock this morning and now it won't run anymore. Every step of this clock I have had to figure out why the clock won't run anymore. This one, I'll have to take the face back off to show you, but hang on. So when I slid this on here, there's 4 screws that hold this face on here, and the winding holes aren't necessarily in the middle, but they're close enough I could probably wind it, but all of the extra space is at the bottom. The top is rubbing on this hour tube and stops my clock, and there's no way. I've loosened the screws, pushed it up as far as I can. It doesn't really reposition it. So whenever somebody worked on this clock, I don't know how they ever got it working to return to the owner, because they filled in, everything's working, get everything finally working on the test stand here. I'm like, okay, let's just put the face back on so we can adjust the pendulum and get it accurate. It's pretty accurate within 30 seconds a day. Like, I'm pretty happy with it. But I put the pendulum on and the clock slowly stops over a minute or so. It's binding so much. There was no end shake in this arbor at all. All of these have some kind of funky brown stuff around them, like some kind of wood filler. And when they put the plate back on, they put it in the wrong spot, and it's doing that. So the thing can't turn, and it just slowly stops. Very frustrating. So I've drawn little circles on there of where it needs to be to center the winding arbors and the minute arbor. But every time you think you're done, something else shows up. And I'm thinking that that brown stuff that's on the clock is this. I bought this. It's JB Weld for wood. It's an epoxy. It's in a tube. You just take some out, knead it, mix it, and then put it in whatever you're trying to fill in. It's workable for about 20 minutes. And when it cures in an hour, you can tap and drill it and everything else. It becomes part of the wood. It's for dry rot, knot holes, screw holes, insect damage, anything you want to fill in. It says it is a hand mixable epoxy putty formulated to repair and rebuild wood. After mixing, it cures to the same density as wood and becomes an integral part of the repair. Its exterior or interior, no solvents, will not rot, shrink, crack, or pull away. So I bought this initially because I had replaced 2 or 3 window sills in my upstairs part of my house, and there was some wood rot on the wood coming down to meet that sill. Because when you caulk things like that, which the people that put new windows in for me caulked all those cracks, then it holds moisture, then your wood rots. So I got this to fill in those little spaces that are now present in the wood. And it happened to be sitting here by my desk. So I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to fill in these screw holes and I'm going to re-tap them where they need to be. Yeah, wish me luck. This is a little ball of that epoxy. It's hard now. If you just followed the instructions, it said 15 to 25 minutes can be machine worked, and after 60 minutes it's strong. This is what they do in the OR when they're replacing your knee, your hip, your shoulder. They keep a little piece of the epoxy, and the OR tech plays with it until it gets nice and hard, and they know your joint is set up, and then they're ready to proceed. So at 25 minutes, it was still pretty soft. At an hour, it was still squishable. I wasn't very happy with it, so I'm glad I waited, and now it's pretty hard. So I'm ready to drill out those holes again. I've got the clock down, and I have centered my holes, my winding wheels, my minute arbor, marked the holes real well so I can re-drill them where they need to be. And I've also got the wood for the back and sides. I was hoping I could just use this thing they had mounted these metal things to. If I flipped it around, the little arch at the top looked like it was about right. And let me set this down. With the clock on it, it's too short. You can't put these back on there. They're hanging off the end. So, and also this was about 1/4 of an inch too narrow to let me put my doors on. So I'm having to start from scratch. This, I couldn't just trace this. I had to come up with how I was going to get what design I needed on here. I ended up taking a compass and drawing a full circle wider than the the distance that I needed for my arc. And since these are kind of usually, they're not totally round, they're flattened, they're wider than they are tall. They're not a perfect circle. Their center of the circle would be probably where this mark was right here. And they moved it up some to cut out the design. So I made my circle bigger than what I needed. I'm trying to show you without the glare. Maybe you can see. I made the circle bigger than I needed. I needed 7 3/8 inches wide. And then I came off of that center point about 3/4 of an inch to my 7 3/4 span when I measure this. So I've got about a 3-inch arc coming up above, which should, it'll be up here, and the bell ends right there. It could be a little bit lower. But I think I'm going to be happy with that right there. The board will come right here. and I can put a hole in it to hang it, and come straight off of these marks straight down for my sides. And if I wanted to leave this board long, I could put my brackets underneath it. Like so. So I think that is what I'm going to do. This will just, the backboard will have these attached to it and be long. So that's my design. It's been a struggle trying to come up with something somewhat original. And then this will be my side door. Coming off of here. So it should, oops, sliding around. It should just fit. Anyway, I'm going to cut out this little arc, which is going to be fun because I don't have a bandsaw. I will be going old school. Ever watch the new Yankee Workshop, or the old Yankee Workshop, and he used all hand tools to make all this fantastic furniture? Well, that's what I'm back to because I don't have the power equipment that I need to do woodworking. I decided to use the board I already had. It's got a little paint on it, but I'll get that off. That already had the curve. I laid the clock on the solid back piece to make the doors. And so I made the side doors first because the clock is a little bit warped. There's no way to just measure and cut. So I laid the clock on what's going to be its back and measured my doors, cut them at angles because it's not square anymore. The weight of the clock has bowed the center pieces. I'm going to try to figure out some support to put under these main parts on the metal bracket that holds it, because the metal bracket goes here and holds these good, but it doesn't do anything to support the middle of the clock. So I'm going to probably put some kind of bar across those metal brackets to give it more support in the center. Maybe it'll square back up a little bit. But anyway, the side doors came out pretty good. They came out like I wanted. I cut a little hole in that one to take care of that little piece poking out there. I still got to put the hardware on it, but they came out pretty good. And then I'm just going to cut a hole in the top piece here for a hanging hole. I've been making hardware for my doors. I went to Lowe's and they had various sizes of wire. So I got some of each because I didn't know what all I was going to do. An 18 gauge, a 19 gauge, a 20 gauge, 24 gauge. And I've been using this 18 gauge, which is 1.2 millimeters for most all of my hardware. I had to put little hooks in the back here because I had to replace this door. This was an original hook, and so I had to pull it out to get my door up there anyway and measure, so I could get the length. And they're 3/8 of an inch long. They're pretty long. So I made these little hooks 3/8 of an inch long, and decided to hook them on like this and like so. I tried a different hook at first that was just an L-shaped piece with I put a little bushing on the end of it, and a little brass piece. It looked real pretty, but it was too loose. I didn't like it, so I went back with a hook design on that. So I've still got to do this side. I started with the hole to fit over my little replacement piece here, and then made a hook for it so I could line everything up. on this side. And I've made a mark 1 inch in on each side for my hinges. I've cut 2 pieces of the wire. I think I made them too short. I measured 3/8 and I added 1/8 of an inch for the bend, but I didn't add for the other side. So let me cut 2 more pieces of wire and be right back. Alright, longer wire. And I've got a small pair of needle nose because a standard pair is going to give you a lot wider bend. So just hold them in the middle. And then I pinch it a little tighter too. I drilled the little holes approximately the same size as the wire. So once I get them started in the holes, I can tap them in. So I'm going to put this other one in, and then I'll show you how I made the little hooks. So this wire for the hook is 1 3/4 inches long. I'm making the hook 3/8 of an inch. Take my wire bender. And then I want the piece coming across about 3/4 of an inch. So that's going to go straight down into the wood. And there's my little hinge. My little latch. Yep, I bent it the wrong direction. I did the one on the other side first, and I made this one go the wrong way. Okay, I need to bend it the other way. And these wire benders are good for that, because you see, if I had used pliers, I would have little notches. It wouldn't have bent very straight. Okay, so then I put the latch in. See where it's going to come. The center of my eye bolt. Let's see where my bend is. I come straight up from the little pencil mark I made. And I'm going to make a hole right there. So this should slip right in there. And then you see it's hard to get it to go in the hole. If you bend it a little more than 90, it makes it easier to hook in there. So it's the same design there. Bend that one a little. Oh, that's the wrong end. Put the long end in the hole. It's much easier to do when you're not recording because you focused more on what you're doing. Bend that one up just a hair. One's got a little torque to it. Oh goody, I pulled my pin out. See what happens when you record? All this crazy stuff starts happening. Alright, anyway, these are done. You flip this over, bend it down, tap it flat. And you have a pretty snug little hook. Pretty firm. Alright, I've got to fix this hole. It's kind of wallowed out. Whoever pulled the old one out of there when they took it off. That's why my pin doesn't want to stay in. So I'm going to use some of that epoxy that I used on the front holes here. It's good and hard. I haven't re-drilled the holes for my faceplate yet, but that'll be next, is getting the faceplate back on there. So this is the mounting board I made. I routed a little groove in the side, stained it, made a hole in the middle. I mounted this on here to set the clock on, and there's two holes. There's holes in the bottom of the clock where it used to be attached here with a screw through it acting like a pin. It didn't screw to anything. So I made holes in this wood so I could put the pin through the clock and into this wood to hold it. And I made it, instead of just putting it on these, I made this little support because the front of the clock is starting to bow down a little bit because of the weight. So I feel like if I can support it on three sides, and now that it has a back to support the back, not this back, but the one that I made that's on the back of the clock that they had taken off, it should help it not sag anymore and maybe square it up a little bit with it putting pressure right here. And it's ready to go up on the wall. So it is basketball season. It's the Final Four tonight, and it's about to be halftime, and then I'll get this hung up on the wall, and then I'll get the clock on it. So this is the place I picked for it, in the kitchen, and it's got a screw in the top and the bottom, and it's level. I got the level on it right there. So I'm ready to try to get that pendulum on there, which is a pain, the design of it. I didn't redesign the pendulum, so let me get the clock sitting up there and the pendulum on it. Alright, got it up there, got it in V. I haven't put the face on yet because I'm going to let it run overnight in case I need to do something else tomorrow. Just setting the time. It is about 8:45 p.m. so far so good. We will see if it runs all night. Alright, first look this morning. Pendulum's still going. Our hands are on. It has slipped. It is 5 minutes till, and that's about right. I'll put the face on it today and we'll make sure. But it's keeping pretty good time. I heard it in the night going off, and it was going off right on the hour, so. And there's the pretty painted dial for the shield. I did go over the shield with some 4.0 steel wool and put some Renaissance wax on it to clean it up and seal it. Overall, really pleased with how this clock came out. One of the group experts from the Black Forest group said it was about 1855. So 170-year-old clock up and running again. It was not working when I got it. Hope y'all enjoyed this video. I hope it helped somebody put a 170-year-old clock back together, get it up and running. Some ideas of how to hang it on the wall, keep it safe, let it run another 170 years. Thanks for watching, guys. Leave some comments, hit the like, hit the subscribe, repair some clocks.